Hey guys, Michael Escalante here, Regional Sales Director for Envision Strategic Partners along the West Coast. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about our cremation process. And being on the West Coast, we have a super high cremation rate, so we deal with this quite a bit. And I want to talk to you about the 5 questions you can ask your family to make sure they have the most rewarding or best cremation service possible planned for them. And all the time we get people who walk in and just say, oh, I just want to be cremated, or I'm sure you've heard it on your phone call when you talk to somebody and say, oh, we're just going to be cremated. Now, what that tells us is that they're just thinking that cremation is just an easy way out. They don't really have to think about it. What they don't know, and I know and now you know, is that there are a lot of steps involved in the cremation process, and they have the same amount of service options that somebody would have with a traditional burial. Sometimes even more options. So it kind of just depends on where you're at and what your funeral home offers. But what we want to do first, before we get into the conversation with the client family, is frame cremation as just the final disposition. So that's all it is. It is what happens to your body after you pass away, disposed of by fire, processed mechanically after that, and then returned to your family in a receptacle. So that's what cremation is. A lot of people think that's all it can be, but it's definitely not, as we know. And so I want to give you some pointers on how to address that with a family, using a little bit of professional courage, pushing back against a firmly held belief that they think is the right way, even though we both know it's not. So what we're going to do is talk about the 5 questions that go into a cremation presentation. So the first thing is a gathering. So that is the first thing we ask. Are you going to give your family the opportunity to gather and memorialize you in some way? So very, very simple, soft language there, but basically what we're doing is sharing with them that, research shows a gathering is instrumental for people to get to that next phase of grief. So, and it really just helps so much when you have a gathering. People can get together, share remembrances, tell stories, and basically grieve with other people going through the same loss. And so that really is instrumental in getting, people onto the next step of grief. So that's question 1, gathering. Number 2 is a viewing. So do you want to give your family the opportunity to view you one last time and say their goodbyes in person? So for a lot of people who choose cremation, they don't even know that this is an option. Most places that we service, it is an option. You can offer the viewing, and they can have, all the way up to a wood casket that burns, or most places are going to offer a rental casket that they can use, something to present the deceased to the family in a very respectable manner, with the full dressing and casketing option available there too. So there are a couple different options, sometimes more than a couple options for viewing, all the way to the full service, down to just an ID viewing with the family only, no embalming administered, and just minimal prep. So that is an option too. But we need to make clear the differences between the viewing options, but also making sure that we frame it to the client family, that it can be important for some people to see their loved one last time before they're gone. Especially if maybe they have children who live in a different state, or an unexpected death occurs. It could be really, really important for their child to see them one last time and say goodbye in person. So we want to at least give them the opportunity to consider that, and ask them if that's important to them. So number 3 is an alternative container. Pretty much every funeral home is going to require a alternative container. It is something that houses the body from the time we pick you up all the way through the cremation. So it is combustible, and it will burn with the body. Now, alternative container can be all the way from the minimum cardboard container to a full all-wood casket. So that is an option that is available. I think with this question, it is very important that we don't assign value to the alternative container. Yes, it is going to burn with the body. Maybe if they don't do a viewing or gathering, no one even sees it. But we do want to give them the opportunity to decide what their final resting receptacle will be. So don't just tell them, hey, you're getting a direct cremation, the cardboard container's included. Don't do that, definitely. You just want to, basically what you're doing there is assigning no value to their final receptacle. And there could be an instance where somebody doesn't want to think about their loved one or themselves in a cardboard box. It is important that you share with them that that is available, again, giving them all of their options. But let's not just assume because they're doing a direct cremation that all they want is a cardboard box. They may want something nicer, especially if they're doing a viewing or some sort of gathering around the body. They might want to be in something that looks a little bit nicer. We'd hate for, a young grandchild to see maybe grandpa in a cardboard box. That probably doesn't bode well. So definitely give them that option and don't decide that for them. So number 4 is permanent placement. So we're asking them, what are you going to do with your ashes? Have you given any thought to what will happen to the ashes after the cremation takes place? This is really important, and it's a great question to ask here before we recommend an urn, because we want to know where they're going to be. If they're going to scatter at sea, for example, which is big on the West Coast where I am, they might want to look at what a scattering tube is. Or we have some urns that are made of sand or made of salt that are meant for water burial in particular. So those are options that you can give them. If they say something like, well, we want to go to the National Cemetery, they're going to need a small urn because those niches at the National Cemetery generally tend to be pretty small. If it's a couple, they're going to have to fit 2 in that niche. So we need to get something that will fit the specifications, because God forbid you sell them a big, beautiful vase and then they get to the National Cemetery and it's too big. We have a real problem then, right? So definitely want to make that a point. We need to know what they're going to do with their ashes once the cremation takes place. Before we move on to step 5, the last question, honestly, not a question, it's more of a recommendation. Based on what you've shared with me so far, let me show you a few urn options that I think will be best to suit your needs. So with this very, very simple step, if they told you already, again, hey, I'm going to be at the National Cemetery, you need to recommend a small urn. If they want water burial, you can show them the scattering tubes or the decomposable urns. So that's definitely something we want to do, and just make sure that you give everybody the option there. And with that, you will definitely provide their family the most meaningful and best cremation experience around their loved one's passing. So again, our goal here is to inspire you. Hopefully you take these questions to heart and can utilize them in every cremation presentation that you have. Thank you very much.